Okay, my friends, thank you so much for coming back. Or hello, if this is your first video. Either way, I'm glad you're here. We are going to talk about this term book launch. If you've ever followed anyone in the writing world that's written a book, or you've purchased from someone who's written a book, you may have heard this term. This is kind of one of those industry terms, and you might have a concept of what it means, but maybe not. And that's okay. These are things that you kind of learn as you get into this area. And this is one of those things that is constantly evolving as this market changes. So, what is a book launch? Let's talk about that. It's essentially just like a celebration of your book. And the purpose is to get the word out. My book's published or will be published, and to grow your reach and your sales and your audience. It's just essentially an event, if you will, something that is put together to help you promote your book in a concentrated dose, if you will. It can take place within the weeks or months before and after your publication date. Okay, so it's kind of this span of time leading up to publication and following publication, where before and after this span of time where the book launch lives, your promotion efforts may fade. There may be none in the very early stages of book crafting, and then it may fade to more of a softer trickle of promotion activity, if you will. But during the launch period, it's like daily or very frequently, a few times a week, where you're trying to get out there and talk about this book, and that is your mission. So, when we talk about a book launch, I just want you to keep in mind that these things that you're doing within the launch period can include platforms and places and events like social media or in person, online, podcasts, any form of written media or even advertisement. But it doesn't have to include all of them or any of them. But the point is, there's not one place in particular that your book launch efforts will be centered within. There might be something that you have the most followers, and you're going to tap into that following over something where you don't have as many. But the point is, it's everywhere. It can include all the things. So let's talk about, let's talk about this a little bit more. And then I want to spend time in this video talking about what's called a soft launch. Okay. But with a book launch, you're going to keep in mind, like I said, that this can encompass everything and everywhere, but you really will choose where you want to focus. During your marketing efforts, you're going to figure out what's working a little bit better than other things. You can switch it up. You don't have to be stuck to what you planned 4 months ago if it's not working. It's far better to try a couple things very strategically than like 15 things all at once. Or it's much better to try one or two things and see what works and then drop the thing that doesn't, as long as you're able to test them out. So don't, I guess the point is, be flexible. Watch how things are working, but don't pull the plug unless you really understand, like, hey, this is just not engaging people. We're going to shift our efforts over here. So that's all to kind of let you know that a book launch can be a lot of different things to many different people. A book launch may look different for someone who's written fiction versus a nonfiction book launch. And for a memoir, it could be different than those two options as well. So you need to make it your own. But a book launch essentially will encompass all of the marketing efforts that you are thinking about incorporating, all the promotional tools that you are planning on doing, and it's going to be within a concentrated area of time. So let's shift, and we're going to talk about, there's essentially two different types of launches. And in this video, I want to cover what a soft launch is. In my next video, I'm going to discuss what a hard launch is. One of these two options is going to be the better fit for you. And so I want you to think very carefully on what works best. Now, you can certainly shift gears if you need to within the launch, but I think you'll have an idea up front which is better for you. So a soft launch essentially means just quietly going into the publication. You aren't like, there's no pressured approach to upload your book to all the places on the exact moment and it launches at midnight and you're like have this big countdown. You're spreading your marketing out maybe before, but also after really is where you're going to put the most of your energy and efforts, because when you're writing, even if you have the best of intentions, setting a hard date can cause some stress. It can cause some pressure that can derail you. What if your book cover designer gets COVID? Like there are things you can't control that can really mess with your date. And then if you've told everyone that this is when you're publishing and things go awry, then you got to go tell them that you're pushing the date out. And it just feels like unnecessary pressure sometimes. Now, if there is a reason why a hard date works for you, then maybe the hard launch is a better approach. And again, we'll chat more about that in my next video. I don't want to make this snippet too long here, but a soft launch enables you to really release your book in a much less stressful way that allow you to kind of work out the bumps. There might be a couple little hiccups with the tech, and you don't really need, a team of people controlling all the things. You can kind of do it yourself, work through it as it happens, announce it when it's done, right? So there's going to be less fanfare, less promo leading up to the arrival, but you're ensuring that your publication has gone smoothly. You've uploaded it in all of the places that you want to have it uploaded. Your files are in the right format. There's no issues, right? And if there are, no one's watching you, and you have room to breathe and room to figure this out and room to hammer out and smooth out the issues before you go tell everyone, okay? So a soft launch doesn't mean that you're not telling everyone that you're publishing a book and all of a sudden, surprise! But you're just not saying like, oh my gosh, it's happening in a week. Okay, oh my gosh, it's happening in 6 days, 5 days, 4 days. Like you're not putting the pressure on. So it's also another way for you to kind of quietly and calmly, without people watching, gather reviews for your book before it's launched. And not only that, you don't really have to go into paid advertising to really get these things accomplished either. There's just a lot of openness and freeness to do the thing the way you want. But I do want you to make sure that you're strategic about, what are the efforts I want to do? How do I want to start building my audience and talking about my book before it's published? Even if I'm not telling them like, oh, exact publish date, or maybe you do, but you don't necessarily count down to it. One other thing I want you to keep in mind that may be a downfall for some people, with a soft launch, you're very unlikely to hit any bestseller charts because you're not involving anyone in your publication directly. You're not saying like, oh my gosh, get on my pre-sale list and this and that. You're not doing pre-sale orders and you're not leading up to it with any big bang. So it's not going to necessarily be the way to hit those bestseller charts. If you don't care about that, then you're solid. But think about whether or not that's a big thing for you. Are you the type of reader that only buys books on the bestseller list, or books that are at number 1 or number 2 or 3? If you are, then this is something that probably means something to you, and you really want to pump it up until you get, really want to maybe do a hard launch approach, because you're going to build that momentum up until your publication date. On the other hand, you could very well have some post-publication activities lined up, promotional activities and events and posts and all of that lined up to go for whenever you hit that publish button that could help you really get some great sales. So it's not like you're losing out or missing out. No FOMO here, okay? You may not have a huge boost in sales immediately after you hit publish, but you're going to be able to build that up and just keep the momentum going once you do publish. That's the back end. So a hard launch might be front loading your efforts a little bit more, and a soft launch is focusing on the after publication piece to this launch period. However, keep in mind that with a soft launch, if you do not get the buzz going beforehand, you really do need to make sure that you get it going afterwards, because otherwise you're not going to see any boost in sales. There's no buzz leading up to that. And if you don't work at it, there won't be any increase in sales. It's just going to be all organic, like whoever finds it on Amazon. Just working up to publication, clicking publish, and then not talking about it is not a book launch. You can do that. That's perfectly fine. But you should set your expectations accordingly, is my point. With a hard launch, you're going to build up and you're going to have a much higher day one sales number. Most likely, I obviously can't guarantee anything, but versus if you don't talk about it at all, no one's watching anything. But if you talk about it after it's done and you can get people involved on day one or week one or month one, whatever it is that your launch strategy involves, you're still going to see sales. They might just be more spread out. So think about where you want to spend your efforts. Where do you want to spend your energy? Are you comfortable with just saying like, yeah, I have a publication date and this, come hell or high water, this thing's going to be published on this date and everyone watch out for it. And you don't mind the pressure. Maybe that keeps you motivated. So we're going to talk more about hard launch in my next video, but a soft launch is something that might appeal to you if you're just like, hey, my main goal is to get this darn thing published. If it happens next week or next month or next year, that doesn't matter to me. I'm not gunning for any bestseller lists, or I don't necessarily care to hit any particular number of sales. Obviously, the more the better, but you may not have much time or energy or money to put into promoting this. And maybe that's just where your interest level wanes and you don't necessarily want to hire a team of people to get this done for you, right? That's okay. That's perfectly fine. I just want you to understand what you're going into. And a soft launch can be simple and easy and quiet, and it doesn't have to be stressful, okay? So that might be the approach for you. Come back for my next video where I talk about a hard launch, how you prep and plan for that, and what the benefits and maybe the pros and cons might be on that one. So I will see you there.